everybody, and welcome to another episode of T.C.G Live Talk. This is Zechs, and currently it is the 14th of February, aka Valentine's Day, which is fitting because I'm all alone today. Zeno, Zeno was not feeling well on the day we were supposed to do the live stream, and since it's also Super Bowl Sunday, it just didn't seem right, just like trying to force him to do it, so we're just gonna do like a solo episode. I haven't really done one of these in like a long time, so I apologize for my rust. It's like, oh, well, you stream. It's like, yeah, well, I stream, but I don't really stream, you know. Anyway, today we kind of have like really like three things here. I have like a small rant, and then I've got some like updates on where the podcast is gonna go, and like a small update on where my YouTube channel is gonna go, because that's what I'm probably going to prioritize from. Not, I mean, in terms of like my stream, besides Twitch and like YouTube, like YouTube is probably going to be like my main priority. So that doesn't mean like the podcast is going to be like thrown away. More so, just I'd want to start doing more actual like hard content, getting that channel up done, which you can get to at youtube.com/redfangzechs, by the way. I appreciate I appreciate the follow there, but so you know, I think pretty much the kind of is like, I want this to also be short too, because I don't really have much to say. There was kind of like very light news on the T.C.G news front, so we're gonna begin with I'm gonna kind of talk about with Vanguard here, because that's my main game. That's what I kind of like doing. Is about the Lyrical Monasterio set, and kind of like how I've seen people's opinions on the set be throughout the whole reveal season, and that's basically non-existent, because everyone has basically been in consensus that this set sucks. I don't want to, not to be blunt, but like that's kind of it. It's like the set's not good, and it's weird because it's usually like people are like, oh man, it's BT. There's usually like something busted in here that's gonna like change the game. But like as you look at the cards and like the quality of what they do and how they support the archetypes, there's very few cards in this set that really just change it. And I think like only like Willistia, Kyrie, and Celestial got buffs, which is ironic because they're I'd argue like three of the four worst, like I say they're like out of the original five, those are like the three worst. Well, yeah, I say that right. Out of the 3-6, that's right. I keep forgetting Earth's Connect exists. I'm sorry. But like out the original 6 like right lines, which were Kyrie and the 5 from the main set, those 3 getting buffs were part of the like the worst ones from the last set, which normally I'd be like, hey, that's a good thing, right? It's like you're not only supporting the stronger archetypes, but you're buffing the weaker ones. And that'd be good, but I feel like because they also added 2 new right lines, and we'll get to the powerful one, which we know, because at the time of recording, like the other one is hasn't been revealed yet, so that could actually be a set changer. But from the revealed ones already, while those do help those decks, I feel like they still need more. And nothing about them is like really like said like, oh, this is gonna change the game. Oh, Kyrie Grade 4 is gonna save this deck. Which is still, I'm not saying they're not good, I'm saying there's not a card that just says, yeah, that's the one I want. That's the one I need in my deck. That's the card that is powerful. It's a 4 of. It's gonna change the game. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need multiple cards that like combine together, really become a powerhouse engine. Take a look at Time Leap. Time Leap wasn't just Melum, wasn't just TikTok worker, wasn't just what's his name? The Grey 2. wasn't just a stand. It was all four together that made such a powerful engine, and it was hard to to figure out where to actually hit him. And I haven't really seen anything from this set that makes either like a really really powerful card or an engine similar to this. Which kind of comes to my other things, like this set is boring. It feels, just from a glance, it feels really boring, and I think it would, it feels boring for, I would feel, I like Lyrical Monasterio, but my main and currently only deck for Lyrical Monasterio is Felty Rosa, so I feel like I haven't really gotten any like buffs to our stuff yet. It feels like our stuff is still missing, so I'm still waiting. But outside of that, like it feels, if it's boring to people who like actually play Lyrical Monasterio, I can only imagine like non Lyrical Monasterio players, especially after V Clan Collection came and went, and then you're having to like, and then you only get reveals of this, and they're all not interesting, right? At the very least, like if you're not playing Lyrical Monasterio, this season feels like nothing's happening. It feels like there wasn't a set coming out, honestly. Because at the very least, like, people were like, oh man, I hate Bermuda Triangle because they always get busted stuff, which they always never did. Let's be real. They were only upset because only recent stuff there. It's a recency bias. They were really just mad that it was just, you were getting beat by idols, by waifu idols. That's really it. That's primarily it. They just don't like that deck. But I digress. That's a topic for another day. But so it's like you're going to the set and you're like, a a clan you don't like, or a nation this time, is getting support, and no one gives a damn. You're probably like, what the hell is happening? You're probably like, either what is happening, or you are like, okay, cool. I don't really have to care, which is also a problem. But that's a topic for when I have Zeno back. So I'll just leave it at that. But to me, my theory is, and it's basically more or less confirmed as this set has been going on, is this set was rushed out the door. Because if you don't remember, when Lyrical Monster 1 originally released, Mori, who was our then Vanguard producer, like I think a week or two after its original release date, said, hey, we've decided. Now, granted, I also forget the mention of, he also talked about like the one like Bermuda Triangle / Lyrical Monster support wave a year. And I think people were like, hey, can you not do that? Like, can you help us? Like, and a lot of factors came into just saying, okay, from this point onward, Lyrical Monster is getting actual like two support waves a year, and by doing so, because of like demand and whatnot, I think they made the right choice overall. It just sucks that the first set feels like it was rushed out the gate, which it is. Because of that original announcement, they said, okay, well, the Lyrical Monasterio set 2 is now in production. We're also reprinting set 1 because everyone wanted it at the time. So there's a lot of factors that went into the set just kind of being, and it's overused, but being mid. So when a set is actually just doesn't feel impactful, and it's part of an archetype like, oh, as it's popular but not popular at this point, it's very much just, it very much feels like, it feels like a wasted like time frame where it could be doing anything else, especially since we don't have currently any tournaments to go by or anything. And it's like the set format, especially after how probably like how like really like powerful like set 4 was. Now it's kind of like one of those rare instances because set 5 and then 2 collab sets and then the premium selection and the festival collection, all that is gonna come like within like I would say like a 2-3 month span. That's gonna be interesting. and that's gonna like probably like we're just probably have like a current feeling of like this doesn't feel fun, doesn't feel right. So it's like we're kind of like a weird lull as a community right now. But I could definitely be like, oh well, eventually we will get to a point in which everything will be fine and whatnot. But it's like for now, it just feels like it honestly does feel like the weakest D series set, and it doesn't feel like enjoyable to really watch, you know. And it's totally not the bias of me being a Felty Rosa player with no Felty Rosa cards that are actually worth putting in the Felty Rosa deck. No. So I'm just joking. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my rant. On to like the next thing. The podcast, like the kind of the state of the podcast right now. So to kind of talk about, I first want to kind of talk about some of the news that was going on with the community, and that's more so going to Drive Check. Now, if you don't know, Drive Check is a podcast hosted by Will. He's a a player in the community, and he's also part of like the Pokemon podcast, probably the biggest one in the entire podcast. Like it's super effective. He ran, I guess you could say, Drive Check for 6 years with him and Cole and their first co-host Jack, but now they took up Alan and had them, and it's been 6 years, and they announced like about a couple weeks ago that they'd officially stop. They would stop doing Drive Check. At the very least for now, going on an indefinite hiatus, and they kind of explained some of the reasons. You can go listen to the start of like their last two shows to kind of get that information. But they explained their reasons, and they kind of was like, well, and there's some reasons they explain, some they don't. I think you could be obvious if you've been listening for like the past year or so. Some of the reasons just by understanding it, and at the end of the day, first off, like that podcast was like that. Um, PKM cast, a lot of podcasts I listen to, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing a podcast. So this is why T.C.G Live Talks even exists, even though this isn't a live talk right now. But semantics. But when that news came, it hit me because I'm like, dang, I just lost one of my favorite shows to kind of listen to, and I get why. I get why with the reasons they put out did. So it's kind of like, so I kind of want to go back and reiterate what I want to do with this podcast. So with TCG Live Talks, I always wanted to just be about trading cards, trading card games, and the news surrounding it. I never wanted to just be stuck to one game at a time, because doing Vanguard isn't really like value. Doing Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't feel right when I haven't really been knees deep in the game sometime. I'm not really a competitive player like that. So it just feels weird to do it. Same with Magic. Um but like I still want to talk about those games because I'm still interested in those games. I've just never been as hardcore as it was. Or at all, really. So that's why I made the decision to start this up. Was we're talking about card games in general. There might be some bias towards Vanguard in terms of news because we have we're part of a community that really follows Vanguard and its news. But outside of that, we do stuff besides Vanguard, right? We do Magic news, we do Build Divide stuff, we do Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. I feel like even then though, we're not really branching out to other like games, right? I think that's probably because like I'm not really a fan of Digimon, so not having Digimon news on the podcast might be an issue. Or you know, Zeno's very connected to like Japanese TCGs. I'm not, so I pretty much need to get the info from him. Which, if he would put in the docket, we could actually like talk about it more. But I don't know. He's been more busier recently, so obviously, like, I wouldn't be too upset with him. But when I so basically that's why I did it. Another thing is to also prevent burnout, because if you're just talking about one card game for a long time and there's no real news and you don't want to do a bunch of like topical stuff completely all the time about that specific game, it's very hard to just swerve and change directions. So that's why I said, hey, let's just do. That's why I said let's just do a overall general T.C.G podcast. That way, it gives more leniency and leeway to actually doing stuff in the future without it feeling like I'm just, like we're just trying to run in circles over probably just being a regular Vanguard podcast or a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast where we're just stuck talking about Yu-Gi-Oh all the time. That's why. Also, the third decision was to make it, also for Burnout, was to make it every other week. Because, well, it is not like video games where we just talk about video games constantly, like something like a Castle Super, I bit my tongue, like a Castle Super Beast or Gaming the Industry or Big Think Dimension, those podcasts like that where they talk about video games in general. Where did I go? Where did I go with this? But okay, I feel like I lost where I was trying to go. But what I'm trying to say is like doing it every other week also allows us to kind of like flex our schedules a bit. So we're not just constantly doing a podcast every week. So we can actually have lives on like Saturday afternoons for time. Be like, okay, we're doing podcasts this week, but next week I'm free. I could probably go to the club and do whatever I want. I say is I don't go to the club and do what I want. So that's one of the reasons why I did every other week. Also because that's why I was trying to go with the Castle Beast thing, was because the TCG landscape doesn't have a bunch of news flowing in left and right. Like say, you get Activision Blizzard updates or news from your upcoming favorite game. We don't have that really, because they always want to try and reveal stuff at different times. For example, Yu-Gi-Oh! Will just reveal whatever it wants whenever it wants. We don't have like a set date, as opposed to like Bushiroad, which they have like set dates for actual news. So, it's definitely like there's different days and different ways they all release news. So that gives us more time to kind of gather up that news and put it together. I'd say that's probably a better idea overall to me, and I'd rather take that. Again, I still want the podcast to talk about news, but I also want to try and like find ways to add more discussions. I also want to like eventually kind of like bring in guests, but that's kind of like weird considering like we do it like at 6:30 at night. So it's like, we can't get your Psalms and your different fights. And I'm guessing like either other YouTubers or TCG YouTubers are probably like doing stuff with their own lives at the time. So I'd say like if we do like episodes like that of like interviews, it'd probably be like kind of like side stuff. I'm gonna be honest. But for the most part, I do want us to start doing more natural discussions, especially for like weeks when we don't have much like news, like right now. It originally was supposed to be like a giant like grab bag of stuff, like what we talk about, what we're doing, how we're playing, whatnot. That was the original idea for this episode, but unfortunately, like I said in the beginning, that wasn't possible. So overall, like TCG Live Talks isn't going anywhere. I'm just trying to say that again, just to make sure anyone was concerned. I'm just reiterating why I wanted this podcast to do the way it does, and whatnot. And I'd say this, like, at this point, if you're not really like about like my YouTube channel specifically, you can just kind of turn off here. This is just like a little small update for people on my end. I'll probably do this like a separate thing, but like so kind of like my personal things. I've gone through a lot in like the back half of 2021. Like the fact I can even still do this podcast is still like a miracle to me. So I'm thankful for that we're still able to do this. But very frankly, like my situation kind of is like very very weird. If you know, you know. I'm not really gonna iterate that. That's not really the time here. So but I actually do want to start doing some box openings eventually. Like once I'm able to get my situation settled and be able to like have a bunch of a bunch of more income coming in and like actually do like openings for channel, openings for openings for just in general, like set for release this week of Vanguard, and I still don't have a single product of set 3. Heck, set 2 was a struggle. That's how like weird my situation has been. So that's another thing. So I do, however, have one thing, and that is like I want to eventually get to downloading get to actually do an opening of these Lyrical Monasterio trial decks I've had. I've had like 2 that I haven't like really opened, so I want to actually open those and just have like an episode where we just talk about like luck and logic and just chill and look at the cards and kind of just talk about it, right? I think that'd be fine. Just have like discussions about trading card games that have faded away that I did play and kind of like just reminisce on my ideas, right? I know there's one I want to do on Kaijudo, but that's pretty much going to be just a Duel Masters episode, let's be honest. I don't know, I might talk about that TV show, but so a long-term project which I have, which I'm going to try, and don't quote me on this, but I'm going to try and attempt to have it done either at the end of this month or sometime early in March, and that is like part 1 of a retrospective of Carver Vanguard V series, and specifically its anime. Because honestly, there's not been like a bunch of like anime discussions about Vanguard outside of like Reddit or Twitter and whatnot. There's very rarely any channels that talk about the anime. There's a couple that do, right? I know Asterisk, they do it. I know Kevin Jones, he does it. And occasionally different fight depending on like what mood he is in and like what he thinks. It's like, okay, I can talk about the anime here because I think it could be a good way to get some information in. But other than that, there's really rarely anyone who does. Oh yeah, and Gleaming Garmore, they also do like anime reviews too. I forgot about them. I'm sorry. So that's kind of my plan. The current state is to do like the first 11 episodes, which cover the original introduction and then the Aichi Morikawa fight and the Team NWO arc, which is, for those of you who don't know, is actually anime original compared to the manga, which the V series anime was adapting at the time. So it's gonna be very interesting to kind of like look at it, especially since there's so many like characters that didn't appear in the manga that came in this specific arc and how they like relate and kind of like how characteristics were changed and whatnot. So that's gonna be interesting. Another thing is like my entire reasoning for it was if you see my channel, like there's a video on the very old part of the channel, like probably one of the first 3 videos, in which it's 5 hours long, and it's me with another like content creator. I haven't talked to him in a while, but Indecisive Dauntless. We talked about a video from another content creator who did a retrospective of Carver Vanguard, and you can go listen to that there. I'm mostly like, after like looking back, I'm not really proud of what I said in that. I'm not really happy with what I did, but I think my feelings haven't really changed. Just how I wish I worded it in a less toxic manner, I guess you could say. But I think this is why I want to do this retrospective, was because when he got to his V series stuff, and this is after going through his G discussion, which that was pretty much most of the video. I'm sorry. Um, when going to, excuse me, when going to his V stuff, he didn't really talk about V. And at this point, when he released it, it was just starting to air. So he never really talked about he never really discussed V in a way that was like positive or negative. He was more like blank here, I don't like this, and like this moment right here was like, okay, I'm done. If you know what moment it is, you know. So he kind of like left V out. And so far, like outside of like again different fights, one or two videos about V series, there hasn't really talked about the V series anime from a more analytical standpoint. So I said, hey, why not me? Why not me? Just make my own content. I've always been like, why isn't anyone talking about this? Why isn't my favorite YouTuber talking about this? And I heard this best from a it's gonna be weird, but a Ruby tuber. They talked about this and they were saying, no one wasn't talking about some of these things that had issues or praises or whatnot. So I just did it myself. And that's what I think you should do as a person, right? Like, I'm literally listening. Listen, if you're listening to me at this point, first off, thank you for listening. But secondly, I'm literally working with a Blue Yeti Nano, an Audacity setting, and open source video editor. That's literally all I've been working with when making all these videos for the past 2 to 3 months. Right? That's why I haven't gone as hard as I can on the progression series. That's why some of those editing mistakes are still there. Et cetera. That's why some audio, I'm not really great with audio, but I'm trying and I'm doing it because I want to actually make content. I'm tired of just waiting for somebody to talk about it when they're not going to talk about it because they have other things they could do that'd be much more interesting. So I'm like, I'll take that up. And why not? So that's why I'm doing this V retrospective. Again, it'll be out, hopefully, first part will be out, hopefully, sometime at the end of this month or next month. So please be on the lookout for that. I'm still gonna do other stuff, so that's gonna be a thing. Speaking of other stuff, please watch the podcast progression series. I know that first episode is very, very weird, and believe me, it was tough because it was also my first official time using OpenShot. It was also my first time editing, etc., etc. But I feel I have gotten better and continue to try and get better. So I asked please, if you can, just watch the podcast progression series. At the very least, give the other episodes a shot. It's okay if you were just waiting for another era. That's fine. I just say, give us a shot and watch me and Zeno deal emotional damage to each other. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, that's one more thing. For the people who are wanting the fighting game stuff, Phantom Breaker Omnia just released a demo, so I'm probably gonna go after this, record a video on that and be okay, here's what's going on. So kind of what's going on, try that. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for time. Zeno will be back next time, and we'll have more news to discuss. That podcast will be the week of the 28th. And pretty much that's it. You can find me on Twitter at RedFangZechs. You can find Zeno at ZenoborgVT. We have our respective YouTube channels and our Twitch channels. Zeno's is ZennyVT, which I keep forgetting he wants to be called Zenny now, but he still makes my life a living hell in that prog series, so I'm still not gonna say it. But regardless, thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to also follow the podcast on T.C.G Live Talks on Twitter. We are also on Anchor, Spotify, and Google Podcasts right now. And pretty much it. I appreciate for listening to a crazy man ramble for 30 minutes about uh, card games and whatnot on Valentine's Day. I'm also a bad content creator because I don't have a Valentine's Day special episode to come through. So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. I hope you all have a good Valentine's Day and a good rest of your week. And be careful. And y'all have a nice time. Bye bye.